What's up, guys? So, I had a couple people who reached out to me talking about this new interesting opportunity from Steak and Shake. Interesting, not necessarily from the perspective that it's all good, because there's some bad things that I want to go over here, but interesting from the perspective that it's a neat answer to some of the problems that they have, and could actually still be a good investment for the right person. It's crucial that you understand for the right person. It could be pretty much an amazing investment for the right person, and I'll talk about why and how. So here's what we're talking about. There are about 100 locations all over the U.S. that Steak and Shake has put up signs on, and one of them is in Chattanooga, which is why a couple of people from Tennessee actually hit me up with this sign. It's like, what is this all about? And what Steak and Shake has done is they put a big billboard up on the side of a lot of their locations saying that you can own that restaurant for $10,000. Basically, become a franchisee and own that restaurant for $10,000. It was interesting enough that I was curious. I knew a little bit about the background of Steak and Shake. It had gone through a couple of acquisitions. It was some interesting transactions. It was bought by a company that owns a company that is of particular interest to me. It's Maxim Magazine. So I've talked before on the channel about a guy, Felix Dennis. He wrote a book, How to Get Rich, with the title. Sounds crazy, but it's just a really, really great book. It's some crazy stuff in there, but it's some really great insight into business. He's an incredible business mind. It's just going through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, but I really like the book. So he owned Maxim, sold it to this company that also bought Steak and Shake back in 2008. So I want to get to all of that. But first, let's start just by talking a little bit about this deal, this 10,000. Obviously, I can geek out on transactions, and that was an interesting acquisition, especially the position it was in, the deal structure they did, the deal structure that the CEO did for his position. It was just a very interesting transaction. But I want to talk about this franchise. So basically, they're allowing you. This part is 100% real. Your out-of-pocket cost for this franchise to own the locations that they've got available right now is $10,000. So you can own these things for $10,000. But what's the catch? Obviously, there has to be some kind of downside to this. Now, Steak and Shake, one of the things that I love is that it's a real business. It's a real brand. Now, there are right now about 400 of those franchises under the brand that are owned by the corporate office. So this is weird when, you really love for a franchise this is kind of the first thing that I would look at. I like when a franchise is just a franchise and they make a majority of their money from the franchise because, that's what they're good at. Okay, the only way you're making money is by franchising. McDonald's, the way they make their money is by being a franchise. That means you have to be really good at helping other people start this business and helping them be successful, because if you're not good at that, you don't make any money. I actually prefer that they don't own more. So you might think the opposite, like, oh, I want the corporate office to own a lot of these. Well, just as a side note, I've owned maybe 8 different units of franchises, 4 concepts of franchises. And so I like franchises. I typically buy them and then expand. I've never just started a random franchise from scratch. I want to find a unit, buy that unit, and then grow that, leveraging the franchise system. I'll make another video about that. I've talked a little bit about it in the past. So you can search that Ace Chapman franchise video, but I'll make some more about this. depending on the interest that you guys have in kind of the franchise angle after this video. But I prefer that they are really great at franchising because sometimes, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a sec. Sometimes the franchise keeps the very best locations, the very best units, the most profitable units for themselves, and they franchise out all the other ones. And so that's what, if you've got 600 units and 400 of them are corporate owned, just as a business, are you going to pick the best location to offer up as a franchise or the not so good location? That's where that concern comes from. Now, here's something that I found out in researching is that the original concept of Steak and Shake is what they should be doing right now. Like, why in the world aren't they doing this model? So when Steak and Shake was started back in 1934, this was a great model. The reason you always hear, or not always hear, but you see like this thing, steak burger, and Steak and Shake is one of those places where like, oh, get your steak burger. Well, the reason that they call it steak burger is that it actually used to be a steak burger. They would, in front of the clients, they would take out a piece of steak. Part of it would be like a sirloin, and then a part of it would be like another steak that they realize, okay, these two together make a good burger. And then they would grind it. They would take this actual piece of steak and then they would grind, instead of just starting with ground beef, which is what most of us are used to, they would turn it into ground beef and then they would cook it in front of you. I feel like that would be killer. In today's world, that concept changes Steak and Shake into like a date destination that already has kind of that 50s feel. And, it could be a very cool experience of like, hey, pick out what steak you want. What type of steak do you want? It would really convert things. I think that's a neat model. When I found that out, it's like, dude, why aren't they doing that? That in today's world, I think would get people interested again in Steak and Shake. I haven't been there in years. I do remember there was a Frisco Melt. I feel like there were two burgers that I liked there. The Frisco Melt, and then I feel like there was an American Melt. And but man, it's a good burger, good shakes. So that's one of the things that you do want to take into consideration. Is like, does this place have a actual good product? So let's talk about the opportunity, because one of the things that's really interesting in this is that they are guaranteeing a $100,000 not salary, but they're going to guarantee that you get paid $100,000 a year beginning of the first year. That's really, really interesting. So, but what are the downsides? What you got to do for that 100 grand? So you pay 10,000. They're going to guarantee you 100,000. What do you have to do? One of the things that they are basically copycatting is the Chick-fil-A model. Now, I've had a couple people that looked into Chick-fil-A's years ago, and just with my friends and stuff, I get asked what I think about things, and I like researching this stuff. So a lot of times I'll research a little bit about the model, and it sounds like Steak and Shake is basically kind of copying Chick-fil-A, and I don't even think that that's a bad thing. I think it's a really great move. So what they're looking for is they want people that are 100% working in the business. They don't want people that are looking to be investors. They want people that are going to try to hire somebody else to really do the day-to-day work. They want you hands-on there every single day, making things happen. And at the end of the day, they want a manager. So you can't really outsource this. The other thing that you've got to do, and this is just standard in every franchise, I've had to take these tests on these franchises. You've got to go through, their trainings. Sometimes it can be a month of training that you go through. At the end, you've got to take these tests, and if you fail the test, you don't get the franchise. This is all kind of on top of the fact that once you graduate, you're running a business that's 24 hours a day. Now, for me, I remember there was a Hubble House for sale in Chattanooga. And my parents came to me and they're like, hey, this Huddle House might be a good thing. Or what do you think? Or, would you want to invest? And they really loved this Huddle House. And I'm like, 24 hours sounds like a nightmare. I mean, at that point, I owned some tanning salons. And it was annoying just to be out at dinner. You're out on a date and you're with your special lady and you're really enjoying yourself. And, tennis salons stay open late because they got to be open when people are getting off and all that. And, 8, 9 o'clock at night, you're getting a call because tanning machine is having issues or, whatever the case, just things come up and it's like, okay, now multiply that by 24 hours a day and you can get a call at 3 in the morning that the stove is out and, or whatever. You've got a customer that wants to talk to you because they've got a complaint. Sounds like a nightmare. Not interested, not interested at all. And so fortunately, I was able to talk them out of the 24-hour thing, but learned a lot about that business. It was interesting. Now, here's something that I felt like was a particular interest. When you read through the Steak and Shake, kind of material, a lot of the things sound a lot like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is obviously a very open Christian company. They talk about having a servant's heart and that kind of thing. And Steak and Shake literally took the exact wording of what how Chick-fil-A describes the people and what they look for. And again, I don't even think that that's necessarily a bad thing. The biggest downside to Chick-fil-A is the same thing that I think people are going to find here is that you are really an employee that gets a bonus. You know what I mean? And it's such a smart thing. If I'm investing in a business, quite honestly, I want manager owners. It's the same thing that I want. I want to find manager owners. They're going to invest in the business and we're going to run it and they're going to grow it together. The biggest difference is I don't care if my manager owner wants to outsource it and get that work done or have somebody, I want them to do that. Like literally, I was just on a call with one of my managers and I'm telling him like, okay, let's get this systemized. Let's get somebody else on it. I don't want them in it. It's exactly the opposite. Now, I don't know with Steak and Shake what their exact requirements are. I'm really sure that they're copying exactly what Chick-fil-A does. And they're going to make sure that you're working a certain number of hours in that store. Like you have to be there. So that's something that I think, when I talk about this being the right opportunity for the right person, that's something you want to consider. Do you want to be working in that Steak and Shake? Now, what do you get? They're saying they're going to guarantee the $100,000, even starting in your first year. Now, what you really get is 50% of the franchise profits. And here's where I think this is really, because I like to look at things from both perspectives. I want to look at things from the franchisee perspective, pros and cons. I want to look at things from why is the franchisor doing this? And at first, anytime you see the word guarantee on anything, that should be a red flag. Like, how are you guaranteeing this? Like, what does the guarantee mean? Like, if you run out of money, where's the money going to come from? That, so how can you guarantee this 100,000? And I think it's interesting because at first that was a red flag for me that, man, this is weird, but I would be curious to know how much their managers make. Let's just say that they were paying their managers $100,000. This is an amazing deal because they're going to get $10,000 from you. Now your business makes $100,000 in profit that year. They give you $50,000. That first year, they're saving a lot of money because they got your $10,000. They got, you made $50,000. Now instead of just paying that person $100,000, they are able to just pay you $40,000 more in addition to the $60,000 that you made as a 50% of that profit, or 50 plus the 10 that you paid them. Interesting from the franchisor perspective. Now, here's where you should be concerned. This business, from the time that they bought it, they got an amazing deal on taking over the business because it was losing money. Now, there was tremendous amount of assets, millions upon millions of dollars of assets, but The Laurie, the company that bought them, I mentioned them. They bought Maxim a while back. When they took over in 2008, things kind of started going up. They also own like Weston Sizzler. Just it's a diversified company that buys companies. It's my kind of thing, which is why this was of particular interest to me. So the interesting thing is it looked like things were going up. The numbers looked really good, but so far this year they've lost over $20 million, and $20 million, losing that, matter of months, that starts to add up over time. So that would be my biggest concern. 2018 lost money. And the other big thing is that in 2021, sometime like mid-year, they've got to pay like over $100 million, like close to $200 million that they've got to pay. And when this note comes due, now it's not necessarily, they could most likely think they don't have the cash to pay it, so they could refinance it. If they can get the numbers to look good, it's going to be a lot easier to refinance that than if they don't. But you want to go into this doing this level of research, because guess what? If you get into this, you pay the $10,000 and they go out of business in 2 years, you're out of a business. Now, from my perspective, just thinking as an investor, I'm okay with that. If you're somebody who doesn't have a job at all, you're looking for a business, you can get a guarantee of $100,000 for 2 years, especially if you can put that money away. You don't want to increase your lifestyle or change things, and then all that money's gone away, and then in 2 years you're out of business still. But I feel like if you get, again, for the right person, they will have to pay that over the course of 2 years, that $200,000. One of the things I also love, if you've ever dealt with distressed deals, one of the things that is that when it comes to these distressed deals, the first person that has to be paid is wages. Before any other debtor, obviously before equity, before anything else, any wages are paid. So let's say they start having a bunch of issues, they owe you money. You've got this signed contract for, obviously we don't know exactly what that looks like, but for $100,000 a year. And you're going to get any money they owe you if they stop paying because they get into financial trouble. You're going to get your money first. So that's not going to come up until sometime in 2021. So you're going to get that money for that period of time. And that's going to be kind of your ROI, which is, again, interesting. I think it's also interesting from the perspective that you're getting in the business, you're going to learn how to run this business. And if they do have to go through bankruptcy, they're going to sell all those assets, get rid of them. You can still end up owning your unit, change the name, still have your employees, still have everything, build up something a little bit different. Maybe not all is lost if you can start to make that make sense. Now, the other big concerning thing, they have closed about 101 stores since taking over, and they also are planning on trying to turn those into franchises for franchise takeover. So this goes to what I was talking about. If you got somebody who owns a ton of stores and they got a few stores they don't own, are you going to give me the best stores? And so, this is a nightmare. I would not open up one of these closed units. Obviously, they closed them. They did not close them because they were making so much money. They closed them because they were losing money. So that's a terrible deal. To take over a unit that's active, it's generating income, that kind of thing, that's more interesting to me. Now, this is, again, it's going to be a case-by-case kind of scenario. If it is in a good location, truth is, it's going to take maybe 6 months to get everything back up and running. If you can pay the $10,000, they're going to guarantee you the $100,000 even while you're reopening the store and all that. Could be an interesting angle here, again, for the right person. Some things that annoy me about this business, beyond just I don't know a lot about what's going on, I do like the Frisco burger. Like I said, that's about as little. That's about, and I haven't been there in years and years. But when I look online, it's just like stuff that's just so easy. Like you can hire a reputation manager if you're a multi $100 million business, $500 million. You should hire a reputation management firm to manage your online reputation. Look at the corporate web Facebook page. They got like their own face. Take it down. Take the Facebook page down. It's got a 1-star rating on there and so many complaints and all this. Just take it down. Like if you don't want to get the reputation management firm, just a lot of bad stuff online. They're not doing just a good job of I don't know what they're doing. They're not doing a good job of their online marketing for sure. But they're also just it just seems like laziness on their part for managing that. Another huge concern is that they have had several lawsuits, some of them not an issue for somebody who wants to franchise. Big issue for them. They've had like a lot of like multi-million-dollar lawsuits, which could be a very good thing because it could mean that once they get all of that under control, some of those losses are attributed to that. So, they have to pay $7 million to managers. This is the one that's the most concerning to me as a franchise type manager owner. They didn't pay overtime and were basically scamming their managers out of money. And so they lost a lawsuit for $7 million over that. And so pro and con there, if they lost like 2018, they lost 11 million and they had to pay 7 million, the business may be doing a little bit better, outside of some of these things or whatever. So very interesting deal. If any of you guys I'm curious about this. So if any of you guys get into looking at this deal, be sure to reach out. Just kind of curious about their process. And, I'm curious about where the business ends up, how they navigate around this $200 million that they owe that's coming due in 2 years, just from the acquisition financing. So it's just an interesting one to follow on a lot of levels. I hope a friend of mine does buy this just so I can see how it works. 10 grand is not, it's relative. It's not a lot of money, especially for a guarantee 100. The risk on the downside seems pretty low, but it's not a real asset. I just don't consider this deal a real asset. It's a money play to get a good return. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think about Steak and Shake? Have you eaten there? Is this a restaurant that you like? Tell me your thoughts on this deal. Be sure to subscribe. I answer questions. I'll probably do a live coming up again here soon. And thank you so much for watching. This is a longer one, but thank you so much for watching the video.